Have you ever experienced a real world's dumbest criminals moment? Over the last 2 years, I worked at a Jimmy John's and one day we got robbed. He waited for all the customers to stop pouring in and went to the bathroom for about 15 minutes. Was he about to pee himself from excitement? Did he get a sudden case of the shoots? I don't know. But a coworker walked by during this time and heard him loudly talking to himself, which I guess was to get pumped up. Then he finally walks out to a completely empty JJ's and orders a sandwich. He was clearly nervous and something was up. As soon as the register was open, he goes, "I have a knife, give me all your freaking money." The girl on the register was a super nice girl, so she totally blanked. However, our GM at the time, a fat Mexican guy in his mid-20s who grew up in a bad neighborhood, just nonchalantly goes, "I don't believe you. Show me your knife." The robber starts bickering with our GM, but the GM stays calm and tells him to show it. So he finally takes his knife out and waves it at us saying, "Heck, freaking stab us if we don't give him the money." Now here's the best part. We all work with knives and they're really freaking sharp, but our Mexican, it's an affectionate term, takes this as a challenge and grabs our knife and starts chasing him out of the store and down the street. The best part is he's so short and fat, he's waddling in an apron as he's running yelling, "P-word, fight me like a man, Joto." When the police came, the guy was gone, but to this day, our GM tells that story to every new person we hire. The store was in Carroll Stream and the GM's name was Sebastian. I love this story. This is straight up wild from start to finish. Seriously, like the build-up is what I love the most. The dude gets to the store, gets inside, goes to the bathroom, psychs himself up, only to come out and try to rob the place with a sandwich order. Classic move. But then the GM, Sebastian, total legend, turning the tables, chasing the guy down with a kitchen knife. Yes, hilarious, but also really terrifying. And props to him for not backing down and adding a whole new level to the term customer service. I work at my family's liquor store and we have a debit/credit machine where we take the card, punch in our store identification/cashier identification, then amount, stick the card in and hand it back. This one fellow comes in and grabs a 6-pack from the cooler and comes to the counter. He was the only other person in the store besides a random guy in a corner going through wine. So I rang the 6-pack in when I saw him grab it. He came up to the till and I asked him how he was doing and he said fine, and I told him his total as he was just pulling up to the till, and he mumbled something and reached into his coat and pulled out a gun and placed it on the counter with the barrel, or whatever you call the part that it shoots from, facing me, and slides it a few inches forward. Due to being used to people doing that with credit/debit cards, I just stretched out and grabbed the gun with one hand and the debit machine in the other. He wasn't holding on to it very firmly, so I just pulled it away and I realized as soon as I grabbed it that it was a gun, not a credit card, so I froze with his gun in my hand and the debit machine in the other. We looked at each other and then he bolted, leaving the gun behind. I called my uncle and then the cops who came and took a statement and after told me that the gun was empty, so I wasn't really in any real danger, but it's still one of the funniest things to ever happen to me. That is insane. The guy slides his gun towards the cash register guy, and then he just on autopilot just grabs it and goes, "Oh," looks at him. They look at each other and then he just runs. That is super funny, but I'm also really glad the gun was not loaded, because that could have been really bad. My sister used to work at a bank in a Walmart, and her coworker had this somewhat older pickup truck, about 15 years old at the time of this story. The truck was pretty unremarkable in every way: stock parts, stock stereo, average looking. Some idiot punched out the driver's side window and stole the CD player, which didn't play past track 7 on any given CD. Mind you, it was stock and also 15 years old. Instead of disconnecting the plugs like a normal thief, he cut all the wires, making it a stolen CD player that now required repair. The idiot bled all over the inside of the truck because he punched the window in and proceeded to wrap his hand up in one of the girl's spare work shirts. After taking the CD player, he then walks into Walmart and tries to steal a TV, not one of the newer TVs that only weighs 25 pounds, the big tube TVs that weigh 80. When he walked out, the alarm went off. He told the person at the door that it was a return and he was simply taking his old one back to his car. Keep in mind that he still had a bloody bank teller's polo wrapped around his hand. That had an employee's name on it, and the employee who was working at that store at that moment. Of course, the friend and the store pressed charges. The friend was also offered an appearance on one of those judge TV shows, but declined because the case was too stupid for a daytime judge show. I mean, when you're super desperate for maybe a little something to pick you up illegally, if you know what I mean, you'll do a bunch of crazy stuff. I mean, still, punching out a truck for a CD player that's basically a fossil by today's standards is not that bright, and to top it off, this genius wraps his hand around the employee's shirt that's already got a tag on it. Like, as if he has not drawn enough attention to himself, he decides to go into Walmart and get a big giant TV that's as big as a small electric car out of the Walmart. I mean, like, the audacity is insane. I mean, he did not think things through at all. Back when I worked at Walmart, one of the best laughs I ever got while working there was watching two middle-aged women run into the store, grab about 50 of those Visa gift cards from the rack, then run out of the store laughing while they did it. You have to activate them. They are completely worthless without being activated. I bet they were pretty upset when they realized they had just stolen a shitload of nothing. Some creepy-looking guy tried to carjack me. I was leaving the supermarket at 8 in the morning on my way through Rotorua to go to Wellington. He knocks on my window and I roll it down about an inch. He asks if I can give him a ride to some gas station. I'm not too familiar with the place, so I ask where it is and he points up the road. Then he tells me I can just drop him at the corner of the street about 100 meters away. I laughed and I told him to walk. Then he tried to force his way into my car, a 1973 Mercedes, so I opened the door as hard as I could into him and slammed it shut on his fingers. Those doors weighed about 80 kilos. I know this because I had to take them off to fix some rust around the hinges. I feel bad for possibly breaking his fingers. Not really a stupid criminal, more of a gentleman robber, actually. I went out at like 2 in the morning to buy cigarettes. Tried a few shops, but they were all closed. While walking home in sorrow, I was accosted by a young man with a knife, who asked quite politely for all my money. I was a very much poor backpacker at the time, and the $50 in my pocket was pretty much the last of my money for the month. I showed the guy my empty wallet, hoping he would leave it at that, but he noticed my bus pass and decided to take that instead. He then handed me 2 cigarettes and apologized for the inconvenience and walked away. In a state of semi-shock, I realized that without my bus pass, I had no way of getting the 5 a.m. bus to work. Dang Vancouver Transport Company, and expressed my frustration out loud. The guy came back and asked me what was wrong. After I explained, he handed me back my bus pass and said, "We've all got to make a living somehow." A couple of people broke into my storage facility once. They cut through the fence and were going through units when they realized there was a camera mounted near them pointed right where they were standing. They panicked, covered their faces up, and then tried to get rid of the camera. They climbed up on something and started to try to tear the camera down. While doing this, there was nothing covering their faces anymore, and they were literally staring into the lens of the camera no more than 3 feet away. I work in a car audio store. Gangbanger wannabe shows up wanting us to install his amplifier right now. All my installers are busy and tell him it's not going to happen today, but tomorrow we can. He gets all upset and tells me his boy will install it himself, all he needs is the wires. I show him our amplifier kits and he picks one out and pays with a credit card and shows me his identification, which is good. So the next thing I see is this fool grabbing a box with some entry-level 12-inch woofers and running out the door and throwing the box into his ride and peeling out of our parking lot. The store was pretty crowded and more than a few customers saw what just went down and asked should they chase this guy down. I couldn't believe that this idiot just paid with a credit card, and I checked his name and identification and it matched, so I had all the information I needed to have him arrested, but I said, oh heck no. I just wrote up a ticket and manually punched in the credit card for 3 times the amount, something like $585.99, instead of $169.96. The charge got approved and was never contested either. I hope he enjoys his speakers. A few weeks ago, I'm getting home from late night classes when this guy jumps out and says, "Give me all your money," or something like that. The problem is he has no weapon, no gun, no knife. He wasn't even a threatening looking dude. I just sort of walk past him back to my dorm. The guy keeps at it until we get near my dorm. He gets in front of the door and demands money. I pick up a rusted pipe that was always near the door and he backs off. Laziest criminal ever. An Australian guy I know was out drinking in Canada with another Australian mate. His mate left early to go back to the flat they were sharing in Vancouver and was accosted in a dark alley by 2 men with knives. Being absolutely sloshed off his tits, he failed to pick up on the men's intent or their knives and simply pushed them aside saying, "No, sorry mate, I'm Australian," and continued to frick off home. The poor fellow later realized that he just brushed off 2 armed muggers by telling him he was Australian and ignoring them. I worked at a bowling alley in high school. We had a guy climb up into the ceiling in the restroom and wait until we closed, so he could climb down and rob it. Not only did he not get any money, everything was locked up in a gigantic safe from the 1930s that probably weighed over 1,000 pounds, but he couldn't even get out of the building. All the steel fire doors were padlocked on the outside, and I guess he didn't want to risk being seen smashing the glass on the front doors since it was right by a busy road. He did the only logical thing, which was go back to the bar and drink all night. The manager found him passed out on the floor when he opened in the morning. There were two guys from my high school that robbed a little convenience store. They had ski masks and guns, and the robbery went pretty smoothly for them, but they also decided to wear their Letterman coats with their names on the back. They were later arrested. Working as a cashier for a grocery store, a customer came and placed a random assortment of things at my register. Candy, soda, a couple kids' toys, and a pre-cooked chicken from the deli. She mentioned to me that she was from Oregon and would like the tax removed. We can do that in Washington for customers from specific states. To do this, she had to give me her ID so I could record the info on it before removing the tax from the transaction. After giving her her total, she said she would like to pay with a check. She was filling it out as I noticed it was pre-signed. I asked her whose they were and if they were available to come and sign the check in front of me. She said they belonged to her mom who was in the car. When she left, I saw her get in the passenger seat of a van and leave, so I took down the license plate as they drove off. After this all happened, I called my floor manager over and told him what happened. We both shrugged and basically said weird, leaving it at that. Later that day, the loss prevention guy called me upstairs, which is never normally a good thing. He told me that I made a good catch because two women had been going around town with a stolen book of checks, and I was the reason the cops had an ID and a license plate to go after. My dad was in a bank and some guy tries to rob the place. Dad notices the guy's gun and tells him to shoot him. The guy wouldn't do it after a constant demand by my dad and left the place. He tried to rob the bank with a plastic gun. Easy way to save the day on you, Dad. A friend of my cousin went to a Circle K in a small town and went to buy alcohol. He went to the counter, they asked for identification so he could purchase. Obviously, he showed them and then put them up at gunpoint and said he was robbing them. Stupidest kid ever. And he was mega caught. I believe he is still in jail on several charges. Dude I started with during an overnight, locked-in stocking position at Toys R Us went absolutely freaking mental. He worked about 1/4 of the shift, then started talking complete madness, then disappeared entirely, as in we couldn't find him anywhere. We'd see evidence he was still in the store, but we didn't see or hear him at all. After a couple of hours of this, he would suddenly leap into whatever aisle we were in and just start shrieking or laughing maniacally, or literally throwing merchandise at us. Bizarrely, he tried to show up the next day as if we were unaware of what went down. The lead guy said that happened a lot. Dudes just couldn't handle being locked in a silent, empty store all night. Why do you think we were hiring 3 guys at once for a 6-man crew? As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts, reactions, and of course your own wild stories in the comments, and here's another video YouTube thinks you'll love. This just happened in my town. A man took a car, allegedly since he had not been convicted, from an auto repair place after bashing apart the after-hours key box. When the police later found the car, they did not have far to look. Inside the car was a McDonald's receipt and a receipt for the liquor store. Police simply went to both stores and got video footage of the man going through the drive-thru and stopping at the liquor store in the stolen car. They need not have bothered. Also inside the car was paperwork from the town's jail with the man's name on it. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts, reactions, and of course your own wild stories in the comments, and here's another video YouTube thinks you'll love.